I was very glad that you were able to be in some of the sessions this morning. You heard some of the lively sessions this morning with my colleague Eric Schatzker and others. And I think you will have heard Mauricio Claver-Caron say, we're in the right place at the right time. There is one of the great realignments of global supply chains happening right now, and Panama is in the thick of it. I should ask you to begin with, do you agree with that? Do you agree that the global trading system has changed perhaps irrevocably in the last few years? And if so, what's the role of Panama in that?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the Bloomberg team for selecting Panama as the host of this Bloomberg New Economy Gateway, Latin America. And for each one of you, we are more than grateful. And I would like for you an applause, please. We are going through difficult times, but when do we have difficult times, we have a lot of opportunities. And when I heard Mr. Mauricio today say Panama is the right place to be, I agree with him. It's not because I'm the president of Panama, but because we have confronted so many challenges. I mean, the world has confronted so many challenges that in our case, Panama, we have been, in a way, successful. Why have we been successful? First of all, because we are a united country. We are united. Second of all, as you well know, Panama has the best maritime, air, digital connectivity in the world and in the region, and we are proud of that. Listen, during the pandemic years, for example, China had some ports closed. Panama, the Panama Canal and its ports never closed. They were always 24/7 open. And the other thing that Panama has that is important, and I have seen a lot of CEOs right here in this dinner, we believe that there is much more important to have a government close to the private sector. And Panama has been, especially in my administration, has been a facilitator. And I could see a lot of presidents and CEOs here that could corroborate what I've just said and help us being in the region, the country with the highest economic growth. Last year we had 15.5% economic growth. This year the forecast at this moment is 7.5. So it's a combination of unity, it's a combination of connectivity, it's a combination of trust. We have here in Panama more than 180 multinational corporations that the regional headquarters are in Panama. Why are there, why you have so many regional headquarters in Panama? Because there is a trust. There is a people, there are governments that respect the rule of law. And I am grateful to be the president of Panama in very complex times. The world is confronting complex times also.
But one of the things that has become more complicated is relationships with China. And Panama has obviously invested a great deal in its ties to China and being a gateway to China. Now that's maybe being called into question. So to go back to that phrase, how are you with multiple partners?
Okay. Let me tell you something. The U.S. is the main user of the Panama Canal. The second main user of the Panama Canal is China. So we do have a very important relationship with both countries. However...
So you're already very promiscuous.
As a matter of fact, I heard that panel, yes. But our main partner is the USA. Our strategic partner is the USA. Obviously, worldwide, countries like Panama need to feel a real coexistence between the two countries. And last year, they had when I say they, President Biden and President Xi Jinping, they had a virtual meeting in November. And they talk about a lot of things. They talk about human rights, they talk about competition, they talk about Chinese businessmen, they talk about national security with the Chinese businessmen. But that relationship is much more than the relationship between Panama and China or Panama and the US. For the world, it is important that that relationship is a strong relationship. And in that virtual meeting, there were some things that were important for the world. Important message. One of them, they talk about the importance of having a handrail for competition to impede or veer conflicts. That's good to hear. And the other two things that they mentioned quite a few times was two words. The word cooperation, mentioned many times, and the word communication. In November 2021, that was important. Right now, communication, cooperation is much more important. So it is not only our relationship with Panama, China, or China, Panama, USA, is much more than that.
Just to push a little bit on what it would mean in concrete terms. I mean, you're saying you have the important relationship, trading relationship with both the US and China, but when it comes to it, the US is the one. Given how relations have gone in the last few years, does that mean you would be less focused on a trade agreement with China? How does it change your policy in practice?
Well, at this moment, the last government, Panamanian government, they were negotiating a trade agreement with China. My administration has 34 months. Out of those 34 months, 26 have been facing the pandemic. So our main focus during my administration has been facing the pandemic and also economic recovery. At this moment, we are planning to again begin negotiation with China for a trade agreement. Now.
But will you approach that potentially in a different way than you would have approached it a few years ago? Or as far as you're concerned, the world has not changed so much?
Yes, the world has changed, and our style of negotiation is a little bit different from the past government. we're going to push more, for example, on agricultural products. Our access to our agricultural products to the China market. That's for example, one matter in which we're going to be pushing very hard in the negotiation.
As Peter Grauer mentioned, you have invested a great deal in Panama as a role model for the battle against climate change, for the move to net zero. Perhaps just could you say a little bit more about how you think climate change could affect Panama's economy, affect the canal?
Well, climate change has been, as all of here know, has been affecting the world. And obviously has been affecting Panama, and it has been affecting the Panama Canal. When you see for example, hurricanes that we have been having, before we didn't have that many hurricanes. Eta, Iota affected Panama. The climate change has been affecting the Panama Canal water system. So for Panama and for the world, climate change should be problem number one. And in that issue, as Peter said, Panama is one of only 3 countries in the world that is carbon negative. So we have been doing our part. We would like to see other countries that they have, and I have heard, beautiful speeches, United Nations, COP26, to put those speeches into actions. Panama has put these speeches into action. We are, again, and we are really, and I'm going to repeat it maybe 2 or 3 more times, being one of only 3 countries carbon negative, that sends a very high message, important message to the world.
Now, Mr. President, there is something that I'm confused about, and I'm hoping you're going to help me, because you have said so much about climate change. You are one of only 3 countries to be carbon negative. You have the emphasis on the rule of law, which attracts all the multinationals that you talked about. And yet, for many people, what they know Panama is world leading for is for its flags. For its flags, for selling its flags and having so many ships flying under the Panama flag. It is considered the preeminent flag of convenience. So I just wonder, given all that goes with that, and the feeling that those ships are not subject to the same kind of environmental constraints and other things as other ships, and this reputational damage that comes with that, do you think the flag will have to become less convenient over time?
No, the flag for Panama is convenient. What we have been doing in our administration is taking actions to better the regulation, to comply with the regulation that exists. That's what we have been doing. But the flagging of ships, good vessels, is going to be an important business for Panama.
Because the competition in terms of the number of ships with flags is between you and Liberia, and there are some that have now put Panamanian ships on blacklists because of that, the perceived lack of regulation. So how do you feel you need to respond to that?
To apply the regulations that we already have on our laws. We have to apply. That's what we have been doing in these 36 months.
So it's already not as convenient as people think.
That's right.
And you talked about more communication and cooperation between countries. I'm trying to understand your Alliance for Development and Democracy. Where does that fit into your vision?
It is important, very important. Matter of fact, we started that last year in September at the General Assembly in New York. with Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, and Panama. It is an alliance, obviously for development, but it has another word that is very important for our three countries: democracy. And what we are trying to do is how to strengthen that relationship between the three countries and inviting new ones to strengthen our economic and commercial trade and business with, for example, private sector and government. We have here, for example, from the Dominican Republic, very good businessman, executive, that already have met with businessmen from Costa Rica and Panama looking for new good investment. So it is much more than the issue of irregular migration, or have been working with, for example, organized crime. It is related also to how to do business, good business. And we have been going forward in the right place with this alliance. This is a good alliance. It's a democratic alliance. We do have human rights for us is so important. We don't negotiate that with any other country. But it is beginning. We are going to have our fourth meeting this September in New York. This is our fourth meeting. And it's now our fourth meeting, but with the new president of Costa Rica, President Chavez.
Now, you mentioned one of the problems that all of those countries, and certainly Panama, has been dealing with has been migration. Michelle Bachelet, I talked to, we played the interview this morning, and she was quite critical of the sectoral sanctions on Venezuela, the US sanctions. And of course, that has been associated with sending more migrants up across the Darien Gap. So do you also think that the US policy of Venezuela should change, the sanctions should change?
I heard your interview with President Bachelet, and on that issue, myself, I do agree with her. Why? Because economic sanctions for someone that is a government official really doesn't bother its pockets. But economic sanction for poor people, vulnerable people, it does affect them a lot. And I am seeing now, and we have been seeing the US, that the war is not relaxing, but I have seen a new approach to Venezuela. You are talking about the sanction. I'm not talking about the type of government that is in Venezuela. I'm talking about the effectiveness of the sanction, especially for the poor people, is terrible. For the government officials, as long as they do have money and a good bank account, that sanction, there is not much that is going to affect their regular life. And I hope to see Venezuela soon. 2024, they should have clean elections, and I hope to see that we could work, the region and the friends of the region could work to guarantee that Venezuela has a free election, and the opposition, it is about time that they get together and decide, hey, we need to align our opposition. As long as they keep dividing, they are not going to go anyplace.
We have people from the world of finance and fintech here There was some discussion of the central bank digital currencies this afternoon. Crypto comes up in these conversations. I saw that Panama's Congress has passed a bill that would potentially make it easier to pay tax revenues, to pay taxes in crypto, and to for crypto exchange get licenses. So are you going to pass that law? Can I ask you? Just between friends, are you going to pass it?
Okay.
Sign it?
See, in effect, the General Assembly passed about 3 weeks ago the law for crypto assets. However, the process is that from the General Assembly goes to the presidency, and the staff of my lawyers, before I sign or sanction the law, they have to analyze it and recommend if I do sanction or not. It is an innovative law, from what I have heard. It's a good law. However, we do have here in Panama a solid financial system, and one of the things that I'm waiting is when you have a global regulation of crypto assets. And it is important that we need a global regulation of crypto assets. For the moment, if I'm going to answer you right now, at this moment, the information that I have, which is not enough, I will not sign that law at this moment.
Because in its entirety, or would you say just small parts of it you don't like?
That could be, that's the other way. That's the way that I will partially sanction it.
What are you worried about?
What?
Which bits are you worried about?
I have to be very careful with if the law has clauses related to money laundering activities or anti-money laundering activities. That's very important for us. We have been working very hard with the financial action list to avoid as soon as possible to get out of the list. And in that law, it is important for us that it is contemplated the anti-money laundering activities.
Thank you. That is helpful to us thinking about it. Peter Grauer started with the strength of Panama's economy, and I'm an economist. We're nearly running out of time, but I have to ask you, how worried are you by the prospect of the Fed tightening and the implications for the global economy, for the US economy? It's trying for a soft landing, but their great example of a soft landing in 1994 was not so soft for Mexico, for other emerging market economies.
Well, yes, I am a little worried. Of course, we're a little worried for that action. It is needed, but also on the process of the economic recovery could have an effect. Could have an effect, but it's going to cost you a little bit more to loan money to invest. It will cost a little bit more. So for us, and I know that for the US, it is a worry. So we are worried about that. So we'll have to see what happens.
Final question. As you know, this is the sister event, maybe the younger sister event of the New Economy Forum in Singapore. And several years we have had the New Economy Forum in Singapore, and we've had my boss, John Micklethwaite, talk to the Prime Minister of Singapore as I'm talking to you now. And I was struck by something that Prime Minister Lee said a couple of years ago, which is that Singapore, small Singapore, was like a bonsai model for China, a miniature version that China looks at to see what it could be. You have a very big northern neighbor, the US. If you were going to make the comparison, what is it that the US can learn from Panama?
The way we handle the pandemic. We handle the pandemic as a team, a line team. We follow a process. We adapted a process that was used by a very successful pilot fighter of the US, John Boyd. And we adapted his system when he was a fighter pilot. And we adapted this way. We had a health team observing what was going on in the world with the pandemic, observing what was going on in Panama. But when I'm talking about health team, I'm talking about professional, real professional, scientists. And the next step was to analyze what they were observing. The third step was recommend to the president what they think that was the best alternative. And my position that was easy was to decide what to do. But never, in the pandemic, never, I took decisions because I woke up and I thought that this is the best decision or this is the other best decision. We follow a process. Lieutenant Boyd called that process 40-second Boyd. He didn't have that much time. But that process helped us with the mission of that our system didn't collapse compared to other countries. And the same system helped us to have a vaccine strategy that was one of the best in the world. Our strategy has been recognized as one of the best in the world. And we decided on time with a team of experts, our Fauci's, and I'm going to only compare to Fauci, period. Our Fauci's, they tell me what to do. But that team of experts allow us to talk to Pfizer, which is 95% of our vaccine, and 5% AstraZeneca, and negotiate and guarantee the Panamanian people enough vaccines that in this moment we are with the 4th doses that we need. So we do have in Panama enough vaccines to vaccinate. So if the US needs to learn something about Panama, it's the way that we handle the pandemic. And I'm not going to qualify how did the US handle the pandemic.
I think that is unspoken, but definitely the lesson could be learned. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for hosting us here.